In the private sector, if you are able to push something by a millimeter, you make an inch of progress. With the government, if you can push something by a millimeter, if you can, then the progress that you make is a mile long. Joy of that is very different. In 2016, when I was just stepping down from Mindtree as its executive chairman, the then Chief Minister Naveen Patnaik called me and said, the state needs you. This was his language. So one trainer said, sir, long time ago, there was a girl called Muni Tigga. And turns out that she was an Adivasi girl. Her father had died. She heard about this ITI after her 10th class and studied electronics there. So I said, where is Muni Tigga now? So they said that she is a locomotive pilot in the Indian Railways. I fell off my chair. So she was my first star actually. That is intergenerational change. I met countless such people.
You talk about this ground reality, and the other projected reality is that India today is probably the fourth largest economy in the world. So where is the dissonance?
The dissonance is in inequality. I think we should stop.
Hi, this is Siddharth Aluwalia, your host at Neon Show and managing partner at Neon Fund, a fund that invests in the best of enterprise AI and software companies between US-India corridor like Atomic Work, CloudSec, and SpotDraft, and 57 other such companies like that. Today I have with me Subroto Bagchi sir, one of the co-founders of Mindtree and author of The Day the Chariot Moved. Subroto sir, welcome on the Neon Show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
There's an interesting story like Muni Tigga in the book. Can you describe that story?
So, when I crossed over and joined the government, I was coming back to Odisha after 40 years. I was in the IT industry and gone away from Odisha for 40 years. That's a long time. My understanding with Mr. Naveen Patnaik was that for the first 30 days, he will not see me. And those first 30 days, I wanted to see all the 30 districts of Odisha by road, so to get a sense of what's happening on the ground. And in the heat of the month of May 2016, the mercury was hitting 45, 48. I traveled all the 30 districts. And through that, I covered 3,000 kilometers. Just to give you the context, that's almost the length and almost the breadth of India, from one end to the other end. So as I journeyed, I visited several skill training institutions. And everywhere people talked about, the fact that they have a lathe machine, they have a building, they have 10 acres of land, and they don't have peons and they don't have clerks, and the measures were wrong, the comparators were wrong, and it all ended up with whining. So at some point in time, I told the principals of these institutions that don't sing this song to me. Instead, I told them to tell me what I call a 10-6-4-2 formula. So I said, you are a training institution, you are an educational institution. And educational institutions can be measured only by its output, which is students. So tell me the names of 10 students that you're proud of. Because ITIs and IITs were conceptualized in 1950s. So some ITIs, which are meant to create blue collar and now brown collar workers, are 50 years, 60 years, 25 years, 10 years old. So that's a long enough period for you to tell me the names of 10 students you're proud of. Of these, you have to tell me the name of 6 who have made a name outside the state. And of these 10, you have to tell me names of 4 girls, because girls don't join ITIs, and girls as yet, don't join polytechnics in big numbers. So girls are very important to me. And then of these 10, you have to tell me the names of 2 students who didn't join the job queue and started a tiny little business in the town, in the village where they belong. And they perhaps engage 1.5 employees or 2 employees. So this was the 10-6-4-2 formula. So I would visit every ITI, every skill institution, and challenge them. So that kind of threw people off gear. And people had difficulty telling me 10 names to begin with. And then they started telling me the names, and then I would stop them and say, no. Not just the name. You have to tell me which village they came from, what their parents did, how did they discover you, what did they do here, what did they learn here, and where are they now? Because my desire was to get those people back as role models, make the ITIs and skill training institutions aspirational. Because kids who come in there, they begin by concluding that they're failures in life. So I needed to hold them up to make it aspirational. So coming to Muni Tigga, she was 4 out of 10. And many of these institutions struggled. Till I came to this place called ITI Bharat and asked the principal, so tell me the name of a girl you're proud of. And he didn't. He couldn't. So one trainer said, sir, long time ago there was a girl called Muni Tigga. So I said, tell me more. And turns out that she was an Adivasi girl, and her father had died. She heard about this ITI after her 10th class and studied electronics there. So I said, where is Muni Tigga now? So they said that she is a locomotive pilot in the Indian Railways. I fell off my chair. So she was my first star, actually. So I want to talk to her right now. The power of being in the government is that if you want to talk to somebody, that person can be tracked down in under 10 minutes. Even in a country of 1.4 billion people, government is so powerful. So under 10 minutes, I was on the phone with Muni Tigga. Muni Tigga didn't know who I was. So I said, tell me about you. So she told me in Hindi, मैं मुनी टिगा हूँ, मैं इंडियन रेलवेज में लोको पायलट हूँ, आजकल भुवनेश्वर में पोस्टेड हूँ, मैं हर रोज इंटरसिटी एक्सप्रेस को खोर्धा से पलासा तक खींच के लेती हूँ और वापस लेके आती हूँ. Now, that is intergenerational change. So Muni Tigga became my star from that point onwards, because to me, first and foremost, skill is not about just employment. Skill is about human transformation. We need to embrace that. So when you look at human transformation, when Muni Tigga halts a locomotive engine, 3 generations after her, their trajectory will become very different. When Muni Tigga halts a WAP-7 locomotive engine of Indian Railways, it's very unlikely that she will be actually bullshitted by in-laws or a drunkard husband who will ill-treat her. So that's what skill gives to you. So skills are about human transformation. And more than anything else, when we skill somebody, we give them identity. So Muni Tigga is no longer an Adivasi girl from a nondescript village from somewhere deep inside Orissa. So she is a locomotive pilot. That's her identity. So skills give us identity. So that's Muni Tigga. And, I realized that skill development is so critical for a country like India, at the bottom of the pyramid. But if you can skill a girl child, then you release power to the universe.
And can you describe a couple of more powerful stories? Because I'm really moved by the story of Muni Tigga, and I believe my listeners would also be having the same once they listen to this conversation.
Well, that nice t-shirt you are wearing, and this shirt that I am wearing, and certainly the trousers we're wearing, chances are very high that they come from a tiny municipal town in India, in Tamil Nadu, called Tiruppur. Now, Tiruppur is the Bangalore equivalent of the garment export industry. A few years back, Tiruppur actually is a municipal town, okay, not even a city. It produced almost like $6 billion of garment exports for India. It's done by close to 600,000 workers. Half of them are from Tamil Nadu, and half of them are migrant workers from Bihar and Chhattisgarh and UP and Odisha. So out of that half, 50% come from Odisha. And 98% of government workers are women who are school dropouts. So when you wear an H&M product or a Tommy Hilfiger, or you wear a pair of Dockers, chances are an Odia girl has touched that before he has adorned you. So when you look at mannequins in Madrid and in Paris and in Barcelona and in New York and London, the cloth, the dress draping the mannequin could be from Tiruppur, might have been touched with the hands of an Odia worker. So where is the story going? The story where it is going is the average government worker who's a girl comes there because she needs to get married and the family can't afford it. Typically, you need $1.5 lakh to get married. And if you're not married, you're a girl in India, it's very unsafe. You're a liability to your family. And you want to raise your own family. So they come, take up these jobs and work for a year, 2 years, and then go back. So sometimes it's not about getting married. Sometimes because, typically in villages in India, at the age of 50, people stop working. So father has stopped working. His father is 50. Sometimes there's debt. The family is deep in debt. The brother doesn't do anything. Brother wants a mobile phone, a cell phone, and a bike. So this girl comes because a debt has to be repaid. Because there's an alcoholic father, or the father has run away and it's just mother and a couple of siblings. So they come from very difficult background. And they start to build life for themselves and their families. It's very difficult. So there I met Basanti Pradhan in Tiruppur. So this lady, what endeared me to her is I was born in a tiny little place in a government house with no electricity and water, in a place called Patnagarh. And she came from a village near there. So it immediately, made her very special to me. Now, Basanti Pradhan was a goat herd. Her father reared goat, and she was, one of 7 daughters. Okay? So in the villages, you are desperate to have a son. So she was actually number 3. And she fell off education after a 10th class, and she was rearing goats. So the eldest daughter got married. All the money that was there was spent on that. When it was the turn of the second daughter, there was no money left. So she told her parents that I have to go and work. And she went to a training center run by an organization called ILFS, got trained as a garment worker, came to Tiruppur. In Tiruppur, within few years, she became a production supervisor. Okay. So I asked Basanti Pradhan, what does it take to start life as an ordinary worker and become a production supervisor in the company that she was working for? So she sat me down, and for half an hour, she told me about 20 qualities you need to rise up in life. And I was saying, wow, so this could be a talk delivered in ISB or in IIM Bangalore, or any of the IIMs for that matter, on what does it take to succeed in life. So she told me that, first of all, you have to be very good at your work, obviously. Then she told me that you need to know the total process, not just where you fit in the total process. Then she talked about ability to not just build yourself, but build teams. Then she says that not just teams, but you need to be actually adding value to competing teams, because on one hand, her production group is competing with other production groups, but she said to me that they need to succeed together for the company to succeed. Okay. Then she talked to me about empathy. She said, you need to know your fellow workers and people who come in to be trained by you, and you need to know where they come from. What are the drivers? So Basanti Pradhan, who once herded goats, okay, who comes to Tiruppur and becomes a production supervisor. Now he said, this is India, that is Bharat. How many people know about people like this? So I met Sumati Nayak. I met her in West Side, Bengaluru, off Commercial Street. And Sumati Nayak was, again, a 10th class fail. Joined a government program called Din Dayal Upadhyay Gramin Kaushalya Yojana, DDU-GKY for short. And she was trained to be a retail assistant. So when you go to a mall next time, pay attention to who's selling you a shirt, who's selling a watch, who's selling a perfume, who's selling a book, who's selling you a mobile phone. Now, these are people who come from hinterland India, many times school dropouts or just 10th class pass, went through a training program, short-term, sometimes long-term, and probably work for a company like Team Lease or Quest, and they are deployed. So they are not employed many times by the shop, but they're employed by a Team Lease or a Quest or wherever else. So when I came to West Side, I was meeting people like Sumati Nayak, and our cohorts were trained in Orissa under DDU-GKY to see how they're settling down, how they're coping, how they're building their lives. And while interacting, the general manager actually, showed me, gestured towards her and showed me where Sumati Nayak was standing and said, "Sir, you have to watch out for this girl because one day she's going to take my job." And I said, "Wow." And I thought it's an exaggeration. I said, "What do you mean?" So he said that when Sumati came here, she only knew Odia and a smattering of Hindi. But when she started working here, she learned how to speak Kannada. She became fluent in Hindi. She learned English, and now she's multilingual. And so Sumati Nayak was meant to take his job away. And I said, "This is great." But within a year of that, Sumati Nayak sent me a photograph of a new badge. She had been sent to West Side, Coimbatore, and that badge said department manager. I met countless such people. I met girls who were, I'm talking about girls, I can talk about boys as well, but girls are very special to me. So I met, 10th class pass girls from hinterland Orissa who actually build Boeing aircraft bodies for Tata Advanced Systems Limited. Okay. So in Hyderabad, the TASL, as they're called, they make aircraft bodies. Now, this is sophisticated work. So, these girls and boys, they come from hinterland India, and, we don't associate them with building a Boeing aircraft. So next time you fly Indigo or you fly, some other airline, and it happens to be a Boeing aircraft or a pilotless aircraft, the chances are an Odia worker built it for you.
These are amazing stories. And the kind of pride that I see and delight I see in your eyes on narrating these stories, are they more powerful than your Mindtree experience and the building?
Oh, any day, absolutely. Mindtree defined me. I don't think you'd be speaking to me if Mindtree had not happened. Mindtree is the joy and the beauty of my life. But as I told you before, in the private sector, if you are able to push something by a millimeter, you make an inch of progress. With the government, if you can push something by a millimeter, if you can, then your progress that you make is a mile long. Joy of that is very different. In Mindtree, you're dealing with engineers mostly, right? If you're an engineer, you work with a company like Mindtree, Infosys, TCS, whatever, you're already privileged in a country like India. But when you see Muni, Tigga, you meet Sumati Nayak, you truly understand the power of India and the frustrations. Okay? I only told you the success stories, and there are very difficult, very, very difficult stories of people who are trying hard and they barely come up to the surface level and they fall apart. So for one Basanti Pradhan, there are dozens of girls who come in a garment factory, wherever, many other production places. And, somebody says, give me your savings, I'll make it double in under a year. Okay. It could be a friendly guy from your village. It could be another girl whose cousin brother is actually in the chit fund business. And this girl hands over that lakh of rupees. And the next thing you know is that the money is gone. So there are difficult stories. I met workers who were trained and, if you get skill trained, it's unlikely that you will be able to find employment where you belong. So you'll go to a metro. So I met these girls who were trained in so-called leather technology, but end up in a shoe factory in Bahadurgarh's leather park. And I met these people there, and I asked those cohort of girls as to what was the most difficult thing, what was the challenge in making the transition from a village to Bahadurgarh. And I expected to hear that they will say, the culture, they will say safety, they'll talk about food. But no, it was none of that. They said, we can't drink the water here. Why they can't drink the water here? Because Bahadurgarh, there is no water. It is only groundwater that you can find from a deep well. And that water is putrid, that's polluted. We take this water for granted. Okay? You walk into a conference room, there's bottled water available. You don't worry about the quality of water you're drinking. But here are these young men and women from the rural parts of India where they probably didn't have 3 meals a day, but the air was clean and they could drink the water. But in Bahadurgarh, they're earning enough money to afford 2 meals a day. But imagine you eat your food, but you can't wash it down because you can't drink the water. So for all the great stories, success stories that I told, I also saw life in all its starkness that I wouldn't have seen in the bubble, within the bubble, within the bubble.
And can you tell us more about your 8 years of being a public servant, what work you did? You were almost at a position of a cabinet minister.
Yeah. So I was given the status, as they call it, the rank and status of a cabinet minister. That was essentially to signal the seriousness of the state. And also it was essential to give agency so that people, took me seriously. It happened in 2016 when I was just stepping down from Mindtree as its executive chairman. And within 4 days of that, the then Chief Minister Naveen Patnaik called me and said whether I could come and set up the Odisha Skill Development Authority. So the charter was to do skill development mostly at the bottom of the pyramid. And, my whole world was to create employable skills. At that time, for 1.2 million young people, most of them school dropouts. So my target group was basically mostly 80% of them were people who would drop off after their 5th, 8th, and their 10th class, or before their 10th class. And 20% of my audience was kids who have passed their 10th and would now go into what's called an ITI or a polytechnic. So that was my new universe.
And during this podcast, we'll discuss various life stories of you and the people related with you. So can you describe, Mr. Naveen Patnaik as, because he was a CEO in his own right, a CEO of a state, right? Your experience, how did you knew him, your experience working with him, and some of the transformations that he brought in the state of Odisha.
So first of all, I didn't know him. I knew of him. I had no past association, and I had nothing to do with politics. Mindtree started its global learning center in Bhubaneswar. It was called Mindtree Kalinga at one point in time. That was when the government of Odisha was courting IT companies to come and set up campuses. So during the course of that, he came for the foundation stone laying, and then he came to inaugurate it. So it was very polite interaction during that time. It didn't build any familiarity. Then what happened was I stepped down from Mindtree on 31st March 2016. And on 2nd April, I had a talk to deliver at the behest of the Odisha government. This is called Odisha Knowledge Forum. And they typically bring all the top bureaucrats together and get somebody who's from the outside world to talk on eclectic set of subjects. So it was the 3rd edition of the Odisha Knowledge Hub. And on 2nd April, I delivered that talk. Prior to me, Raghuram Rajan was one of the speakers, and Nachiket Moore. I was the 3rd in that series. I didn't realize that when I was talking to the top bureaucrats, a feed was made available to the Chief Minister's room. He never sits in these because he wants his officers to have a freewheeling, no innovations kind of interaction. So unknown to me, he was listening to the whole talk. This is 2nd April 2016. And 4th April, I got a phone call from him saying, would I come and be part of the government's initiative to set up the Orissa Skill Development Authority. He basically said 2 things. He said, the state needs you. This was his language. And second thing he said is that all the resources that you require will be made available to you. And so we thought about it for a couple of weeks with me and my wife Susmita, weighing the pros and cons. Because in doing something like this, very limited script available that you can use, not too many narratives. So I decided I'll take the opinion of 4 people. First, of course, Susmita, who's been my life partner. Then I said that I will speak to Manish Savarwal of Team Lease, because he understood the whole world of skill development and I had no understanding of it. And the third person I decided to talk to was Nandan Nilekani, because he, among all of us, had previous experience working with government. And the fourth was my brother, who used to be a bureaucrat in government of Orissa. So he was an IS officer who had retired long back as Chief Secretary of the state. So he knew the intricacies there. And the decision I took is, if any of these 4 people will say no, I'll not do it. But as luck would have it, each one of them said, yes, I should be doing it. And so after 2 weeks, we decided, between Susmita and I. And on the 3rd week, I said yes to Mr. Naveen Patnaik. We packed 4 suitcases, closed our house in Bangalore, and we crossed over.
And can you describe those 8 years and what made you stick for those 8 years and the experience of working with Mr. Naveen Patnaik and the broader team?
More than working with Mr. Naveen Patnaik, as I was telling you, he gave me a free hand. Yeah. It was working with people at the bottom of the pyramid. That was exciting. My entire life has been inspired by the possibility of making ordinary people achieve extraordinary things. And I did it in many ways when I was building Mindtree. Prior to Mindtree, some of my best years were the 10 years that I spent in Wipro. So all that was good. But the excitement of being part of a government is you get to work with people at a very different scale. And, I sensed the high. You talk about those 8 years. I sensed the high, felt the high, lived the high, because I was telling some people the other day that in the private sector, if you push something by a millimeter, you make progress worth an inch. But if you can push things by a millimeter as part of the government, then you can go a mile long. So that is a dimensional, So if you're looking at transformative change, and you're part of a government, and you have the right empowerment, you have the right agency, then it is just mind-boggling as to how much of impact you can create. And some of the impact can be intergenerational.
And why did you name the book The Day the Chariot Moved?
You know, the interesting thing about choosing titles is that you don't choose them. So they suddenly come and they coalesce together and they speak to you. So the words all came together and they spoke to me. And I realized that this name is a perfect name for a book like this, because, the chariot is an inert thing, any chariot, sitting by itself. And then people come, people who don't know each other, people necessarily who have no previous connection. And they're brought together by a sense of purpose. And they start pulling. First one person, then 10 people, then 100 people, then thousands of people. And they pull without a script, without supervision. And they have a sense of calling. And then kinetic energy takes over. And the chariot starts moving. The chariot and people become one. And great progress then gets made. The excitement of pulling the chariot is in pulling, not sitting on top of the chariot. So when you look at public transformation at scale, or for that matter, transformative work at scale, it involves everybody. It requires that sense of purpose. And, it has a certain magic. And there's a starting point. There's a point where an inert thing, like a static chariot, then starts moving. So that's how the name came up. The Day the Chariot Moved.
And how have these stories during these 8 years changed you as a person now?
It's difficult to summarize that. I can only tell you that, I feel humbled. I feel responsible. I feel lucky. I feel blessed that I was able to engage with these people. Each day I learned something different. How many of people watching this podcast would have heard about words called stunting and wasting? Okay. India is the stunting and wasting capital of the world. 46% of Indian kids have malnutrition. 46%. And when you have early childhood malnutrition, it affects your learning capability, your judgmental capability. The brain does not develop after the age of 8. And the brain requires protein. So till the age of 8, if you are protein deficient, they'll not be able to do math. You'll not be able to have linguistic capability. You won't have the capability to connect the dots, which is essential in life. So I didn't know about the words called stunting and wasting. I didn't know about terms like DDU-GKY or PMKVY. I didn't pay attention to the fact you go to a hospital, you go to Manipal Hospital, you go to Fortis, you go to Apollo. I see if you ever got admitted or your near and dear one got admitted there, you're only focused on the doctor. You don't ask yourself, where did the nurse come from? How did that nurse take on this job? Okay. You don't even realize that a hospital is not about doctors and nurses. It's about the bedside attendant and what is called the general duty assistant. The person who is pushing your wheelchair, the person who is handling the stretcher, the person who is making the bed for the patient, changing the diapers, handling the bedpan, preparing a patient to go to the OT. Where do these people come from? Where do these people go? They get trained. These are mostly school dropouts or maybe 10th class pass. They run, they go through a training program for 45 days, 60 days, and then they come here to become bedside attendants. The combined market cap of Swiggy and Zomato is about $23 billion. Who's the Swiggy delivery boy? Who's the Zomato delivery guy? What are they escaping to come to a big city to deliver your pizza? What happens to them? You have no understanding. You have no clue. So every day I learned something different about my country. It changes your perceptions. It changes your latitude and longitude. Does that make sense?
And as you said, right, most of the people who are living in urban cities and are fortunate to be in IT sector or related
Whatever
other sectors,
sector.
whatever sector, they haven't seen the real India.
Yeah, and very interestingly, so the real India is Bharat.
Yeah.
Okay. The small India, subset is India. And those of us who live in India, we think the role of Bharat is to serve us. We don't see our role as serving Bharat. So as long as your supply of maids and security guards and your fresh food, delivered on your table is there, Bharat justifies itself. We don't see us as responsible for that. So during COVID, India had a refugee problem. Nobody calls it a refugee problem. It was one of the largest mass exodus when workers from the metros, they walked, cycled, sat on trucks and trailers, Shramik Expresses, to go back to where they come from. It was one of the, as I said, largest single mass exoduses in the civilization called India. We've promptly forgotten them. But they make our lives tick. If you and me are sitting on this podcast today, they are there behind the scene. There's a ghost you will not see. Till the fresh food is not served on your table, till your driver has vanished, till the maid has not reported today.
I'm quite moved by listening to these stories because I myself come from a tier 2 town called Meerut. So I have seen, not as closely as you have, but I've seen the nearby villages of Meerut called Mawana and Hapur.
Yeah.
Right?
I know where Hapur is. Yeah.
But as we grow up, we eventually, between our struggles and our growth, keep on forgetting what happens in real Bharat.
Yeah.
And how much, the effort does it take for a chai at our cup
Yeah.
to get made
Yeah.
at the Bharat level?
Yeah. So simple thing, next time you catch a flight and you want to use the washroom, and you're very delighted that the washroom at a GMR airport is squeaky clean, right? And inside that washroom, you'll find a person standing whose job is to clean after you. Sometimes that person actually shows you in and offers you a hand towel or whatever. You don't pause to realize there's an 8-hour job. So 8 hours, you are in a public toilet. You don't see the connection. You don't pause to think where this person has come from, where this person will go. We have to be responsible. We can't say that I'm fine. I have my apartment and I'm now focused on buying another apartment. I'm in an apartment and now I need to go to a gated community. My kid is going to a good school, okay? And I'm worried about whether my kid is going to crack in NEET or JEE or whatever it is. I'm good in my own world. But next time you see this person, next time you see the general duty assistant in the 5-star hospital that you go to, next time you go to a mall and buy that expensive watch or perfume, pause, talk to that guy. And next time the Swiggy guy or Zomato guy comes in, make eye contact, smile, tip that person a little better. Put yourself in that person's shoes and ask yourself, how much is enough?
And you talk about this ground reality, and the other projected reality is that India today is probably the 4th largest economy in the world, $4 trillion. Right? So where is the dissonance?
The dissonance is in inequality. Okay. I think we should stop beating our chest about becoming $4 trillion, going from 4th to this 3rd to the 2nd. I think development must have equity. You cannot be skewed. India is skewed. We have made great progress. We have made great progress. I think there was an India before 1990. Economic liberalization took place. And there's an India that evolved, started taking shape after 1990s. And the kind of infrastructural progress that India has made, the kind of consumer power that today India has, the kind of economic consolidation, aggregation that happens, that makes India a significant player in the world economy and world politics, is very significant. But equally significant is the fact that the disparities are dismal. So, there are food delivery people everywhere in the world. There are Uber drivers and Lyft drivers everywhere in the world. But what makes it different in a country like India and the developed countries is the quality of life that an Uber driver has in a developed country versus what happens here. The respect that a skilled worker gets in a country like India is dismal. The kind of nutritional deficit India has compared to other countries is dismal. So I think it is important to have humility. It's important not to get carried away with $4 trillion. We need to say, is everybody progressing? Is everybody growing together? So I'll tell you, in 1990s, I used to work for Mr. Azim Premji. And he sent me to Japan to understand total quality management. So I visited many Japanese factories, and most Japanese plants are actually run on the power by, on the strength of its workers who are typically school pass outs. So every Japanese plant I went to, I asked what is the wage differential between the worker on the shop floor and the head of the plant. And consistently I was told it's 1:6. And you come to India and I ask the same question. It's unsettling to know that even today, 94% of Indian workers, they are in the what is called the unorganized sector. Only 6% Indians work in the organized sector. That may be 6%, 7%, whatever, based on how you count it. But more than 90%, really closer to 94%, come from the unorganized sector, the sector with which I was engaged. What does it mean? It means zero job security. It means no health coverage. It means no leave. Okay? It means no career progression. And it means that when COVID hits, you scamper. It means that the drinking water is not drinkable. It means you are far away from the grid. So then let's talk about women. It's very sobering to know that amidst the women who are in the workforce, job workforce, 94% of women in the job workforce, they are actually in the unorganized sector. So if you're a man and you get your wages paid in cash, which means zero job security, you have no health security, you do not have career progression of any kind, it's one set of challenge. When you're a woman, it gets multiplied 10x, 20x, 40x. So if India, it's less important for India to be a $4 trillion economy. It's more important for the food delivery guy to wear better clothes, to eat better, not just give you and me, food delivered under 10 minutes. Even today, an ITI student graduates and gets paid 10,000 rupees, mostly in cash. The equivalent of ITI in Singapore is called ITE. When an ITE person graduates from IT after same 2 years of vocational training, the starting salary is 34,000 Singapore dollars. When you graduate from a polytechnic in Singapore, the starting salary is $36,000 Singapore dollars. When you are graduating as an engineer from the National University of Singapore, 37,000 Singapore dollars. You can build a future with 34,000 Singapore dollars. You can raise a family. You can get married. You can get health benefits. 10,000 rupees, you get displaced from Meerut and from Bhubaneswar and from Coimbatore. You come to a city, you become a slum dweller. So we need to build an India that is significantly more equitable. And the responsibility for that is with those who are in India, for those who are in Bharat.
And your understanding of policy making, how did it change during these 8 years? Like, as you initially said during the beginning of the podcast, our perception of the government is laggard, is corrupt, and it doesn't want any change. Example, Bangalore is the GDP capital of Karnataka and also maybe in some way of India also, in some sense. But you see the quality of infrastructure here.
Yeah. So we think that this, for all failures, it's the government that is responsible. We don't pause and say that society is responsible. We certainly don't pause and say I'm responsible. So who is clogging the Bangalore road? I am clogging the Bangalore road. Okay. Who is causing the sewage mess of Bangalore? I am causing it. Who is causing the strain on the medical system? I am causing it. I have a role to fulfill. So, when we want the COVID shot, okay, then for a fleeting moment, till the jab goes in, we think and probably thank the government, right? But it's policymakers who made that happen. So we're talking about the stereotypes, actually sloth of corruption. There is sloth, there is corruption, but it's a societal problem. So there was a time when the politician was corrupt. The bureaucrat was not corrupt. Then there was a time when many bureaucrats became corrupt. But now we are entering a time where society is corrupt. So demonetization happened, right? Society is back in business. Even today, you want to buy and sell a real estate. Educated people want money in cash, and educated people pay money in cash. You go to buy anything, anything above maybe 5,000, 10,000 rupees, the guy will say, do you want a bill or you don't want a bill? And you say, what's the difference? The guy says, bill lenge to GST lag jayega. I said, no, bill ka zarurat nahi hai. So, we blame the government too easily for the ills that are social problems. But coming to policy making, this country still runs because 10% of politicians are fantastic people. This country still runs because 20% of bureaucrats have not sold themselves. So they're both efficient and incorruptible. So you can have four kinds of government officials. You can have those who are neither efficient nor corrupt. Okay? Neither efficient nor corrupt. So they're parasites. They have retired from their service without notifying the government.
Yeah.
And then there are those people who are very corrupt and inefficient. They're criminals. And then there are some people who are not corrupt, but reasonably efficient. Okay? But a very small subset is there, which is neither corrupt nor inefficient. They're highly efficient and incorruptible. The country runs because of them. They are making the policy. If you look at the size of India, the size of the problem, and big problems require big solutions. And the term policy is very interesting. It is something that causes transformation at scale. It infuses intergenerational change. It happens because of some very enlightened people, very committed people. So we need to break the stereotypes that we have in our mind. And you look at the kind of things that the government does. We complain about the civic failure in Bangalore city because we think that that's our birthright. And if you look at the defense of the country of India, it is, it's exciting for brief spells like Operation Sindoor, okay? And it's nice movie watching. You eat popcorn, relax in your couch, and you are watching a very patriotic movie. But who's running the defense services? It's the government that's running the defense. One day, there was somebody who was ranting in a public forum about the failures of government. And I couldn't take it anymore. And I asked that person, so tell me one thing. Who gave you your first inoculation? The guy said, how is it relevant to this conversation? The conversation was about government's failure in skill development. I said, no, it's relevant. Because the first jab you took, okay, was made available by government, for which government didn't charge you money. The first TABC injection you had, the first polio shot you took, okay, the first smallpox vaccination that you took, it was delivered to you by the government, wherever you may be, in the remotest part of India, for which the government didn't charge you money. And you are standing here ranting and venting against the government, because without those shots, you wouldn't be standing here. So, who conceptualized that? Who delivers the last mile that makes it happen? COVID happened, lockdown happened. Okay. Who ran the law and order while you were locked in your apartment for 1 year, 6 months, 2 years? And, while you and me, we had our 3 meals a day and our breakfast and our, endless cups of tea and coffee and everything else. There's a supply chain at work. That supply chain was not being made possible by the private sector. That supply chain was made possible by the government. So government works. Right now, you and me are doing this podcast because the lighting system is working, because the government is in charge of the production and distribution efficiently of energy. You look at the educational system. We complain so much. More than 90% of kids still go to a government school. The last mile of any delivery is happening because the government is at work. So government works.
So, then why, at one point of time you are saying that there are people in Odisha and places, 90% of India was not getting equitable opportunities, right? And the other point you are saying the government is working. So what, again, where's the dissonance that I'm hearing?
So the dissonance is at many levels. Okay, the dissonance is happening because of inequitable development, and that's happening because I think it requires a lot more engagement. Engagement by people. Okay, like you and me. It requires, of course, enlightened politicians. It requires more committed bureaucrats and so on. But in many ways, it also is a civilizational issue. For India to come here, it has taken thousands of years. And for this India to transform itself into a more equitable India, we have challenges that will take probably more than a lifetime. So we need to take a civilizational view. We need to have patience. But in the meantime, people who are in positions of comfort, okay, the haves, we have to fulfill our obligations in a more significant way, more intense way. Because we need to see that for our successive generations to succeed, the whole of India needs to succeed.
When I was planning for this podcast, my goal was to make it 60% of this podcast your Mindtree journey and 40% focus on the book. But I'm delighted the outcome came out to be 100% focus on the work that you have been doing in the last 9 years.
I'm delighted too, but at the same time, I must tell you the joy of conversations like this. The joy is, there's a script and there's the unscript.
Yeah.
That's true of life as well. Okay. That is essentially what I define as the power of emergence. We get too focused on what we want to achieve, but there's an emergence that is waiting to happen. And great things are achieved when we listen to the call of emergence. When we open the window into possibilities, we let go where the energy wants to go. So what we did, you and me, is we allowed the energy to flow the way it wanted to flow. And hopefully that led to an interesting, informative, instructive, and nice conversation.
Yeah, I would like to conclude here. If you promise me another podcast on the Mindtree journey, because I'm very curious about it as an entrepreneur, not for the listeners. Of course, I want it for the listeners, but if you promise me another podcast on the Mindtree journey and the lessons from it.
You told me that some of your best podcasts have crossed 1 million views.
Yes.
So here's the deal. If this podcast gets 1 million views, okay, then we'll do that.
Okay, thank you. But thank you so much, sir. It's been
Thanks,
such a delight.
Thank you. Absolutely.
It's been such a pleasure of getting this conversation go unscripted completely and into what real issues need to be discussed.
And I hope people get to read The Day the Chariot Moved, to be inspired, not with my voice, but every page in this book has voice of people at the bottom of the pyramid. It'll lift you up. It'll give you a new purpose in life. It'll make you engaged. And together we can, we will, we shall.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
I would say that, go read this book for the Muni Tigga story and story of so many others, who you can play a role in, if you can, let another Muni Tigga flourish. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.